How many of you remember the old TV show with Columbo, wrinkled raincoat detective? You know, he'd say, I'm confused, help me understand. I thought we agreed we were going to meet at the courthouse at noon. And I'm here to testify, I've spent most of my professional life being Columbo. Someone said they were going to do something, it didn't happen, and I'm like, well, help me understand what went wrong. Or maybe you're in a meeting and someone is pushing back on your ideas and you're having to say, help me understand your concerns about this course of action. And you know it's the exact opposite of what your evil twin really wants to do, which is to say, I'm going to make you understand if it kills me. So I love phrase number 8, and for a good 10 years, Columbo was the photo on this slide because that's my favorite phrase. Now, I hope you all found some phrases that you can use for good and not for evil. I heard some people at a certain table that will remain nameless using the phrases for evil. And it reminds me of an email I received from a gentleman who was in my audience. And I'm going to invite you, of course, my contact information is on the card. Feel free to send an email. Hey, I tried this out. Here's how it worked out. Here's what happened. But I got an email from a man who I didn't recognize his email address, but the subject line said, distortion of Sarita's top 10. I'm like, that's juicy. I need to see what this is all about. So I opened the email. He says, hello, Sarita. I just wanted to let you know I'm trying out the top 10 phrases at work. Here are some examples of how I'm using them. So I proceeded with caution, scrolled carefully, and he had taken each one of the 10 phrases and used them for evil. So, for example, he had taken my beloved phrase number 8. He says, I'm going up to people at work and I'm saying to them, help me understand why they hired you. And then he scrolled down to my other favorite, number 6. And I use number 6 as a neutral observation, like I noticed this was late, I'm wondering what happened. Or when my daughter was a teenager, I noticed you said, whatever, I'm wondering how I should interpret that. So phrase number 6 was my other favorite, and he said he had the nerve to go to his coworkers and say, I noticed you're still here. I'm wondering when you're gonna get out of my face. And of course, he culminated with phrase number 1, what will it take to get rid of you? And guess what? I was pleased. As speakers, our worst fear is that you'll sit here and you'll take some notes, you'll talk to your neighbor, you'll laugh at the funny jokes, and then you'll go back and do nothing differently. And I thought to myself, how much time and energy must he have put into each of these 10 phrases, albeit for evil, but how much time must he have spent reviewing the phrases? The mere fact that he had looked at the phrases after he left the conference. So, of course, I emailed him and I said, hello, sir. Thank you so much for letting me know that you're trying out the phrases. However, I'm concerned. I left it at that. So communication really is a make or break when it comes to whether you're going to be the person who brightens the room or when you enter, or you're going to be the person who brightens the room when you leave. A lot of it comes down to communication. So we've spent some time very briefly looking at remembering your big picture and what you can control. You wrote down something, okay, I have control over this. We've talked briefly about those 5 people that you spend time with and whether or not you might need an upgrade. And then we've talked about this whole notion of communication. I want to spend our remaining time together looking at that 4th one, which is really the positive attitude. And I love the words of the late, great actress Lena Horne. She says, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's how you carry it. Isn't that a wonderful quote? Because stuff is going to come at us every day. The question is, how are we going to respond to the stuff? And so I want to spend the remainder of our time looking at some strategies that will truly help you stay positive and focused even in those uncertain and challenging times. One of I mentioned Jim Rohn earlier, who's one of my heroes, and I just love his quote, which I think sums up everything we're going to look at. And when you think about your dental practice where you work, it really is a challenge, isn't it? To be strong but not rude, to be kind but not weak, bold but not bully, thoughtful but not lazy, humble but not timid, proud but not arrogant, and have humor without folly. And I thought, what a great quote, because it really shares with us that challenge of getting that delicate balance of getting the job done, sometimes having to be a little firm, but at the same time not being weak, and always wanting to be kind and compassionate. And so I love this Jim Rohn quote. And again, I think it hints at some of the things that we can do to stay positive. Now, I want to do a quick survey before we continue, because I'm going to first launch into some ways you can rekindle your passion for your work. And I know some of you have been in your work longer than others, so I'm going to do a full-on survey which requires that everyone stand up. This is not the wimpy raise your hand if kind of survey. This is a full-on stand up survey. And I'm going to ask you, if you've been working in the dental office management arena for at least 5 years, remain standing. Any less than 5 years, you can go ahead and sit down. At least 10 years, remain standing. At least 20 years, remain standing. 25 years, remain standing. 30 years, remain standing. Let's give these people who are still standing a round of applause. 30 years. 30 years. Wow. Okay, do I dare jump to 35 years, remain standing? Let's see who. Wow, that's applause worthy. And how about 40 years, remain standing? Wow, let's give them a round of applause. Wow. Now, do I dare jump to 45 years? Remain standing. Wow. I see about 6 people remaining. Do I dare say 50 years? Anybody been in 50 years? 50 years. 50 years. Where are you? You, come on down. Come on down. 50 years? Come on down. I want my 50-year people to come on up. Let's see who you are. Another round of applause for these wonderful ladies. Thank you so much. Woo, that's some wisdom right there. And you know, I have to say, interesting, I love my job. I laugh all the way to work, having that sense of humor. All of those are important as we think about rekindling our passion. And loving your job is certainly part of it. And part of what we love in our jobs is having something juicy, a goal or something to work toward. And people say, well, Sarita, how do I know what's a worthy goal? Whether it's in my work or at home. And I always say, complete this phrase: someday I will what? And I'm going to ask you to find that carefully chosen best friend for now and just briefly share with them how you would complete that phrase, someday I will. And by the way, there's only one verboten answer: retire. Because there's not enough juice in retirement. It has to be, someday I will retire and spend more time with the grandkids. Someday I will retire and travel around the world. Someday I'll retire and build my dream house. Someday I'll retire. And by the way, don't say clean out the garage. That's not motivating either. So someday I will what? If you say retire, it has to be and something, because that's having something worthy to work on, even if it's not work-related, is invigorating, allows you to rekindle your passion for your work as well. So just a few moments, someday I will what? With your new best friend for now. But it's those kind of things, those kind of special projects, things that we've always said we wanted to do that keep us positive even when we have some negativity in the background or even when there's some challenges going on somewhere else. So hopefully that was a productive discussion with your best friend for now. Let's talk about some other things that make a difference in our being able to feel passionate about our work. I remember I had a client, it was a university actually, and I love all clients, but there's a special place in my heart for university clients. I love this because my former career was in university administration, and there was a university client who asked me to come do her all-staff meeting, and I had been there maybe 3 years earlier, and she says, "Can you come back?" But she says, "I know you're just going to be talking about communication in this presentation, but can you throw in the three Ps? We love the three Ps. Can you throw those in?" And much to my handsome husband's dismay, I am a fan of guessing games and quizzes. And so, of course, I came into the presentation and I said, "I was here 3 years ago and I talked about the three Ps. Do you remember what they were 3 years ago? Do you remember what they were?" So I had them pair up and see if they could remember the three Ps, and there was a group all the way in the back of the room laughing hysterically. I'm like, the three Ps are not that funny. I need to mosey on back there and see what's going on. And I said, "What's up? Do you remember my three Ps?" They said, "Sarita, we don't remember your three Ps. We made up three of our own." And so tentatively I said, "Oh, what are your three Ps?" They said, "Our three Ps are pasta, Pinot Grigio, and Prozac." I said, "Whatever works." Whatever works. And truth be told, I have to admit, when I was speaking, again, virtually during that brief time, I told that story, and somebody put in the chat, "Those are the pandemic Ps." I said, "Yeah, that's about right." So again, the three Ps, another way to look at how can you stay positive, be that positive person, realizing that it's not all about you, not taking things personally, realizing that this too will pass, and then being able to stay focused on your big picture and not get sidetracked by the day-to-day things that don't go your way. I mentioned that my daughter is 32, even though I'm eternally 39. And I have to rewind all the way back to before she was born. I was working in the university, and I remember in preparation for her arrival, I said these words, "How hard could it be?" But I was ready. I was educated. I could do some research. I work in the university. So I got a 1-year subscription to one of those parenting magazines. How many of you have ever read any of those parenting magazines? Don't they say some scary things in the magazines? So I got my 1-year subscription, and one of the things they said in the magazine was, "By the age of 4, your child's personality is formed. That's who they're going to be forever." But I continued to read for 1 year, and then when my 1-year subscription ran out, I was horrified. I'll tell you why I was horrified. Because in reading that magazine for 1 year, I actually learned more about how to deal with my coworkers than I did about how to deal with my daughter. And what was interesting to me is some of that stuff actually applied to the world of work. And so I'm going to invite you to think about something. Because, you're going to go back and you're like, "I'm going to try out the top 10 phrases. I'm going to stay positive with my 3 Ps. I'm going to rekindle my passion." You're going to be ready. And then guess who the first patient is going to be next time you're in the office? Womp, womp, womp. It's going to be that one. The one that's going to put all this stuff to the test. I don't want you to try the 10 phrases. I don't want you to use any of the stuff that we've talked about for this time together. All I want you to do is just look at them with a moment of empathy, and I'd like you to be thinking, they've been this way since they were 4 years old. Thank you so much. You all have been great.